Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Fantastic Four First Steps. Of course, as the title says, there will be spoilers in the second half, but I'll let you guys know when we get to that. Kicking things off, base overview of it, I give it an 8 out of 10. I've heard a couple people say that. That's what I would give it to. It's definitely close. There's a section that I think is probably a 10 out of 10. It's probably, most people's favorite moment of the whole movie, honestly. And I was like, that's amazing. And of course, I'll talk about that in spoilers. But overall, I give it an 8. I wouldn't compare it under normal circumstances, but of course the movies came out so close together. I do think it's better than Superman. I enjoyed Superman. I thought that was really good. I think this is better. So I enjoyed this. I enjoyed both, but I definitely like this one more. I do also feel like we're living in a great time for comic book fans. Well, some people have had some major complaints. But for me, I think they're both really good. I think both are very comic book movies, especially the scene that I really love for this film. They did some stuff where I was like, oh, they're going all in on the comic book stuff. They did stuff which definitely relates to the Fantastic Four. If they were ever going to do it, now was the time. But it was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And it was just like, no, here you go, Fantastic Four stuff. And I was like, well, that's awesome. So I was very happy with this movie. And like I said, overall, I'd give it an 8. I'm very excited to see the future of the Fantastic Four and whatever ends up happening with Doomsday and Secret Wars and stuff like that. So I'm excited for the future of the Fantastic Four within the MCU and how all that's going to end up playing out. And I would assume that they're going to carry over from this whole reboot situation, because all of Secret Wars is meant to be a reboot. And I haven't looked into the stories because I just assumed always, I was like, well, it's Secret Wars, it has to be a reboot of the whole franchise. But I did hear that Kevin Feige, I guess you have to tell people that, because there's a lot of people that don't read comics. They wouldn't really know that. Of course, I know that. A lot of other comic readers where it's like, yeah, of course it's the reboot. That's why certain things, even with this specific film, there were certain things that were assumed, because it's like, well, reboots are coming and things can happen. But overall, I thought it was a good movie. I highly recommend it if you have not seen it. I think it's fun. I like the characters a lot. I think they do a lot for the characters. And here's something else that a lot of people have said. Unfortunately, Ben is the one who gets the least. There's definitely some stuff in there, and there are things that were unfortunately cut from the film where they have a whole villain that doesn't even show up. He's referenced, but it's there's images, I think even, usual trailer stuff, here's a scene from a trailer, but it was a scene of an actual whole character that just doesn't show up in the movie. So it's really unfortunate, and they don't really do extended cuts for MCU films. They haven't yet, at least. So I think it's kind of just, it's gone. So that really sucks, because it's well, they did stuff where it's here's straight up another villain character that just doesn't show up. So I'm like, I would like to have seen that. I like what we got, but I definitely would have loved to have seen, honestly, just because I enjoyed the movie and the world they set up with it being a different Earth. I actually wouldn't have minded if this movie was even longer, because I personally enjoyed it. I thought everything was pretty well done, and it does have a bit of a fast pace. It's it has its sections where it's that felt it was just moving along, but it felt good overall. But it's definitely some of those things where you'll notice, and obviously everybody's different. For me, I noticed it, but I wasn't bothered by it, because I felt like the movie, whatever wasn't cut, everything that we actually got to see was still good. But I could definitely see it where I'm just from the fact that I enjoyed it so much, I could have seen more. So it just makes me want that, not because I thought it was bad, but because I'm it could have been better if you just did more with, just gave us more. But at the same time, there's a whole pacing situation, all that good stuff. So I don't know exactly how the scenes flowed together or didn't flow together, and that's may or may not be why they got cut. But either way, they're sadly gone. But I like what we got. I thought it was definitely good. Like I said, 8 out of 10. I would watch it a second time. I'm not gonna pay to see it a second time, but I haven't done that in 100 million years, to pay to see a movie twice in theaters. But I'm definitely gonna enjoy it. I'll definitely watch it again when it does come to Disney Plus. I'll definitely pick that one up. So I thought it was pretty good. That's it. Go see it if you haven't seen it already. It's better than Superman, but that doesn't mean I'm crapping on Superman. I just like this one a little more. But that's it for non-spoilers. So we're gonna get directly into spoilers, and there's a lot worth talking about when it comes to spoilers, because I think there's a lot, especially for me. I went into it knowing as little as I possibly could, but full spoilers from this point forward. If you have not seen the film, you will be spoiled. But let's start with Franklin Richards. Why not? The first steps, they're mentioned to, or in reference to Franklin as the baby. They could also be in reference to, this movie is also the first movie in phase 6, if I'm not mistaken. So it's the first steps of phase 6 as well. So it's got a couple little things that tie in together. But Franklin Richards, I'm curious how that's going to pan out going forward, because even in comics, it's Franklin Richards is a ridiculous character. It's a kid that can do quite literally just anything. He will live pretty much forever. They will not touch this, so it's okay if I even say this to you. But for anyone that doesn't know this, the whole thing with like Galactus, and they kind of reference it, which I thought was cool. Galactus being like, hey, I need this kid because he'll satiate my hunger and all that stuff. Franklin literally lives beyond everybody except for Galactus. Like at the end of like everything, it's Galactus and Franklin Richards. Like that's literally like a scene in comics that you can find where it's like you go to the far-flung future and it's just kind of Franklin there with Galactus. Like, I guess it's all gone, huh? Like, it's just you and me, buddy. And that's just how it is. And like Franklin is going to just continue on because that's how powerful he is. He's kind of just infinite and all things. He's everything. So he's OP, as we like to say, overpowered. And I'm curious how they're going to do it with this character because he's been in a lot of comic stories. He's involved with, you know, Secret Wars and all that stuff. And he's involved with a lot of things where, and he's a character that's existed for a long time. He's been a kid for like 100 million years. He's just like, the character existed in comics from like way back. Like, I think they might have made him like in the 70s or 80s. Like he's been a kid in, you know, just like a bunch of characters where it's like, they're the same age forever. He's been a kid forever. And he also has a sister. I think that's why they reference twins, in the movie where it's like, oh, you know, twins and stuff. But I don't believe they're twins in the comics. I can't really remember, but it's Franklin and Valeria Richards. And I believe Franklin is the first and then Valeria is only like a year or two younger than him, if that. A year, I guess I'll say. We'll go with a year. But I like what they did. I like them bringing the character in and being like, hey, it's this almighty character that I do feel like, you know, for people that aren't giant comic nerds like me, they could have gone through the explanation of saying like, hey, this is why the power cosmic would allow for Franklin to satiate Galactus's hunger. They didn't do that, and that's unfortunate. Just for comic people, it's not the biggest thing in the world. Who knows if it'll even matter if they'll bring Galactus back when it comes to Doomsday and Secret Wars, but it'll be interesting to see going forward because, you know, this is the MCU. So like when it comes to comics, it's like, yeah, I know this and this, but it doesn't really matter. That's why it's like they could bring Galactus. They don't have to. They could have this version of Silver Surfer. They could have two versions of Silver Surfer. Like there's so many things they can do because Secret Wars is like everything coming together all at one time. So it's like they'll probably be doing stuff where it's like, here's characters that we haven't even done in the MCU, and here's like a one-off version, kind of like how they did with Multiverse of Madness, where it's like, here's versions of the characters that will eventually pop up. Like we had I can't remember the actor's name, John Krasinski playing Reed Richards in Multiverse of Madness, and it was like, oh hey, there he is. That's technically the first time we saw Reed Richards, but that was a one-off, you know, alternate universe version of his character. So they could do that all over the place in Secret Wars, where we see like a buttload of people coming in and it's just like, yeah, we just threw them in here just because, and then there'll be a totally different actor when they officially do the reboot. So they can kind of do whatever they want. And I'm curious how Franklin kind of just slots in there, because by the time we get the time skip in another 4 years with the post-credit sequence where Doom shows up, Franklin's a little older. You know, he's 4 years old now, and it'll be interesting to see what in the world happens. Like, I would love to see like how they're going to explain. You know, they show it, you know, obviously at the end of Thunderbolts, where it's like, hey, here's the Fantastic Four ship, which also leads to all the things that could or could not happen when it comes to Secret Wars and reboots and all that stuff. Because a lot of people, myself included, were like, okay, they're gonna fail. Galactus is gonna destroy this planet, and then they take off and they end up in the main universe as we know it of the MCU. And that doesn't end up happening. They defeat Galactus, they save everybody, and it's all cool. They're just on their Earth. So now it's like, hey, Doom, I would assume, is the one that figures out what incursions are, which, if you don't remember incursions, also Multiverse of Madness, when Doctor Strange got pulled in by like just this random woman that popped up. It's his girlfriend in the comics, but she's just like, hey, incursions. It's when one universe is about to crash into another universe, and then of course everybody dies. So that's the last time we heard about that, which was a minute ago. And I would assume Doom, being the way that he is, which is excessively intelligent, is like, something's going on. We got alternate universes, you know, hitting or, you know, coming near or far, or I've, you know, noticed certain things happening. And that's probably why he even went to their house in the first place. And it's like, hey, something's going on. As much as he would hate to say it, and I would love it if they put this line in there, but he doesn't want to go to Reed Richards for help. But sometimes he just has to. Sometimes Doom can't figure it out. Most of the time he does, though, I'll be honest, and he's really good and he's crazy. Like, he's an insane character. But every once in a while, it's like, you know, and he'll say it in like the perfect Doom way, so I can't even do it justice by pretending, but he'll find a way to be like, yeah, I just kind of came to see what you might think. Not that I needed you, but he did. You know, he'll never like just straight up say it, but like rare occasion he might. But I think he'll be the one to figure out what incursions are on their planet, and then that's what's gonna say, lead them to say, all right, well, let's jump over to this other universe that's the closest one to ours, or however they're going to do it. For whatever reason, they end up in the regular main universe of the MCU. So I'm excited to see how that pans out, because it's not from their planet being destroyed, which means they chose to leave. Why would they choose to leave their own universe? Because they know that they can go to another one, maybe because there's way more heroes on this planet. That's it could be the first one they found or whatever they want to go with. And it's like, there are a bunch of good guys over here, so that's where we'll go to. Maybe there are other geniuses and heroes that have already saved their world. They'll know a way to save multiple worlds, and we can team up with them. My genius, their experience of being heroes, and obviously the Fantastic Four having experience themselves, that'll probably be how they end up doing it. But I'm excited to see how all that pans out. I think, if I'm not mistaken, both the Doomsday and Secret Wars got moved. So I think Spider-Man's next. And it was supposed to be in between the movies, but now it's Spider-Man and then Doomsday and Secret Wars. So I'm curious how that's going to change things as well. We don't have any other shows coming out. Not unless they, I think Wonder Man comes out, but I'm sure that's not going to have anything to do with Doomsday or Spider-Man or Secret Wars. So I think that's going to be its own little funny, interesting thing. But other than that, I think we're waiting for Spider-Man. And I'm excited for that. They say Punisher. We'll see what happens. All that good stuff. But in terms of this movie, because I feel like I haven't talked much about it, just theorizing on Secret Wars, they did a great job with the characters. Like I said, Franklin Richards just popping up, being almighty, all powerful. Not too many answers, kind of being thrown out in the film. Being able to resurrect his mom at the end, the power cosmic. All of that stuff is interesting. But that's Franklin. That's for the future. We'll see what they do with that or whatever. The Fantastic Four, however, were really well done in this movie. I like what we got. I like the costumes, first off. I thought the costumes were just nice. I love the 60s vibe. Like, the only thing this movie was missing was a straight up just scene of the Jetsons. Like, just like, that would have been it. That's all this movie really needed to be like, yep, this is clearly what we're going for. I'm surprised they didn't do it. Maybe it was cut, a weird licensing thing or something like that. I'm not sure. I guess that would kind of be Warner Brothers. If I'm not mistaken, it would be like Hanna-Barbera, still owned by Warner Brothers. So maybe that's why they couldn't do it. But I'm like, the only thing this movie was missing was just a straight up scene of some kid watching the Jetsons on TV, because it fit 100% in this world. But sadly, it's not in the film. But the characters are great. I loved what they did with every character. I just wish we got to see more Ben. Probably a part of some of the stuff that was cut out, where he has this connection with a woman, and really we only see her for like 3 scenes. It's like the first scene where they meet, and then there's a scene where things are kind of going a little crazy, and he looks at her and she looks at him from like down the block or whatever, and then he goes off to do whatever he needs to do. And then at the very end, when it's like everybody's dying, it's like, well, I should probably go see this woman because I like her, she seems to like me, so I want to talk to her. And then we don't even really get a moment with that, which that was the one time where I felt they didn't need to add something, where it was just, we don't need to know that conversation. They just got to have a moment. And it's like, I'm actually okay not seeing that, but I would have liked to have seen them build up more to him going to meet her and the issues that, Ben typically has. It's like, hey, I look like a rock dude. It's a little different. So we didn't get any of that, which one of the things, of course, you go back to the other Fantastic Four movies, like the very first one, they had some great stuff with that, where he was dealing with those issues and, his wife divorces him. And she puts the ring down, but he can't even pick the ring up because she was like disgusted by how he looked and freaked out. I was like, oh man, like that was actually a really good sequence. So it was some good stuff there. But I do wish we got more of Ben. But outside of that, everybody else got some cool stuff. Ree got to be super smart, but also like they touched on some of the darker things. And I love that, where it's like he was like, yeah, I thought about maybe if we gave our son up, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give our son up. But that's Reed Richards. There's an alternate version of him that is like one of the greatest villains in the MCU. He literally made the Ultimate Universe again. Like, he remade the Ultimate Universe, but he was kind of a dick about it and like took powers away from other people and didn't give them to him because he just wanted to make the universe his own. So he's a real bad dude, but he's Reed Richards, but evil. Don't think they'll touch on that anytime soon, at least. But that's a heck of a villain. If they're going like, very few ways to like go over Doom, that's one of the ways. That's definitely one of the ways. So we'll see if that happens. Like I said, that's probably down the line, but they touched on some of the darker things. Like, he's really smart. Although he didn't, the driver's license thing was like, you're not that smart. Like, you didn't pass your driver's test and you don't know how to cook. So I thought that was a cool thing, street smart, book smart, all that sort of stuff. So that was a nice scene. But I like the fact that he's sometimes overly logical, even if he knows that he wouldn't do it. Even if he does say that and he honestly means it, the fact that he thought it upsets his wife. And it's like, sometimes you being you hurts me. And it's like, oh, that's really good. Like, I really like that, because once again, Reed Richards, he does some stuff. He's not doing Ant-Man stuff, if you know comics, but he does some stuff where it's like, that might be a little dark. You probably could have thought like at least like a hint of emotion could have been put into that specific action, but he'll do some things like this is smart, and it's like that's a dick move, but it's a smart move. So he'll do those sorts of things, or he'll at least think them, you know. And like in this case, they don't go that far with it. Well, I guess technically they do by the end of the film, but I like that they even touched on that. Like that's a part of his character. He can be not dark is like it's a hard way to put it, but that's the only thing I can think of right now. I'm not as smart as Reed Richards, but he can do some things that are like too logical, and it comes off as dark, but it's meant to just be smart. And it's like, oh, that's a fun way to do it. That's how you kind of have the differences between the geniuses within the MCU. Like you have obviously Iron Man, and he's sarcastic and this and that, and he's almost full of emotion. And then you have Reed Richards, smart, way smarter, by the way, for anyone that's curious. He's like number 1 or 2 or 3, because they always add new people, and like all the kids are like super smart and stuff. So I don't know, like Valeria, I'll give it to it because that's his daughter, but everybody else, I'm just like, they just throw somebody new smartest person on earth. I'm like, okay, maybe later, but like as soon as they pop up, sure. But I like what they did with this character. I like the darker elements that they give to him, in his personality of, you know, sort of just realistic nature of him thinking of everything, him thinking of all the worst things so he can try to find something that keeps that from being the option they go with. So I love that moment. I thought that was great. Like I said, I wish Ben had a little bit more, but Reed was good. And I only mentioned Ben again because they're best friends, but I almost wish you had a little bit more with them too. Like the scene where they mention how, or Ben's like, you know, you're not that smart. That's like the one scene they have, and that's the whole thing. Like they're best friends. And I wish we got a little bit more of them, because I felt like we got a little bit of Johnny and Ben. I would have loved more of that in general, but they at least got a couple sequences where I was like, oh, that's you know, they're bonding a little bit, so I enjoyed that. But Sue had some great moments, of course, like just kind of her role in the film and being that opposition of Reed and them giving her the actual dialogue. Then I'm like, that feels appropriate for Sue Storm, where it's like they have those moments where Reed Richards is a little too smart for his own good, and she has to be that emotional core to be like, hey, I love you, but that's effed up. I thought that was great. And also she has some great moments, of course, like the ending moment with Galactus and utilizing her powers. I've heard a lot of people say like, it kind of feels crazy, it came out of nowhere sort of thing, but it's like, she's OP, she's insanely powerful. She's obviously not as much as her like just godlike child who can resurrect people, but she's the most powerful one of all the Fantastic Four. So you know, you wouldn't know that because, of course, you know, the last 3 movies did what they did in general, not just for her, but for everybody. So it's like, of course, you wouldn't know that unless you read comics, but she's insanely overpowered. So for me, it was just like, yeah. But that's like a comic brain where I'm just like, yeah, she's so overpowered. It doesn't shock me that could happen. And it was, you know, a mother's love is that final push. And it also killed her, which I was like, you know, once you have, for me at least, I was like, if you have any complaints of it kind of being out of nowhere, it literally killed her. It wasn't like oh, my nose bled and I was like, oh, I was really tired. She died. She was gone. It was like, oh no, like if there was ever a time to just be like, no, that works 100%, it's when the character flat out dies. She didn't do it and then it was like, that was close. She straight up died. And her godlike child in all of its CG glory was like, mama. And then she came back to life. And it's like, no, she died. It works for me. Like, you know, all the time. It's like, oh, the character passed out and they woke up. She was gone. If they didn't have a god kid, she'd be dead. And I was like, that's great. That was a great moment. Of course, I even forgot about the kid because I was like, how can they kill someone? Like, this is crazy. And I'm like, oh, Franklin's right there. Like, I for a second, I was like, they actually got me. And I'm like, oh no, she'll be fine. She's good. So I love what they did with her character, power wise, and just, you know, her emotional beats throughout the film, confronting Reed, helping, you know, like the Mole Man thing where, like, you know, that was a part of the, you know, exposition moment, which was well done. It was just like, hey, here's what they've done, here's things that have happened, here's like what Reed has done and Ben and Johnny have done, and here's what Sue has done, where she literally like talks to one of their villains, Mole Man. I almost had the wrong name because I finally realized it. We always make the joke, oh, The Incredibles is the best Fantastic Four movie. The Underminer is straight up Mole Man. Mole Man, even with what I know about, you know, Fantastic Four and comics in general, it's like, it's Mole Man. He ain't popping up. I didn't remember that guy, but like seeing him, I was like, oh no, that was legit. Like the Underminer from Fantastic Four is 100% just Mole Man, like 100%. I was like, oh, I didn't get that part, but that was literally the Fantastic Four right there. So thought that was funny because like they literally have an image where something very specific. Well, I'm in spoilers. When he blows up the bank, it literally was like, this is the Incredibles 2. Like as soon as it happened, I was like, that is literally the Incredibles 2. And that was crazy. I was like, I didn't understand it. I didn't realize. Same character, Underminer is Mole Man. So Really love that moment just for that, but also a great visual in that moment. But that was one of Sue's things. You know, she basically made an agreement. They have the underground. He ends up helping them out at the very end of the film as well. And I thought that was cool. So, you know, they have their montage. Everybody does their thing. And then we have Johnny as the last character to really get a moment. And I love what they did with Johnny because I never really think about the fact that Johnny is supposed to be smart. He is a real whore in the comics. If you don't know that, one of my favorite comic pages of all time is Spider-Man, because Spider-Man and Johnny are like really good friends, and I would love to see them touch on that. They're like really great friends. Like Spidey is basically the fifth member of the Fantastic Four, like all the time. So I hope we get that for sure, but we'll see what happens. But there's a moment where Spider-Man, oh, there was like these alien kids or something like that, and he's with Johnny, and he's like, this is blank and blank. You know, we'll just say Sam and Ashley. That's what we'll go with. This is Sam, this is Ashley. And Johnny's response was, are they mine? And Spider-Man had to straight up look at him like, no, but we're going to have a conversation about why that was your answer. And I was like, this man he does some things. He does some stuff. And that's one of my favorite comic panels of all time. But they don't do too much of that in the movie. Like, of course, they have his moment with him and the Silver Surfer, but they do something cool with Johnny where he gets to be super smart. And I was like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense because they never touch on that. We always see, you know, the hothead persona of him, but I'm like, he is Johnny Storm of the Fantastic Four. There's a reason. It wasn't just nepotism. It just happens to be the brother-in-law. It just happened to be, but he's also really smart in his own right. And I was like, you know what's funny? All this time, granted, Fantastic Four being the first family isn't the most popular comic franchise of all time, at least not currently. But I've never thought about the fact that I was like, yeah, Johnny did go to space. He's not just some dude that got to go to space because he won a contest. Like, he has to be smart and capable in some way, shape, or form to have done that in the first place. And it's not he was obviously capable before he had powers. That's why he was on the ship. And it was like, like all this time, because, you know, Fantastic Four, couple cartoons I watch, I just don't think about it because they always play up the, you know, literal, the hothead Johnny persona. And it just never dawned on me to be like, yeah, he was on the spaceship. Like, you have to be smart to get into that position. It wasn't nepotism. He has talent. So it was cool to see him actually like decipher an entire language and have a whole back and forth conversation and everything. And I thought that was cool. Definitely like the moment, I would say, of the film for me, as far as like, you know, character beats. But love what they did with that. And then of course him having the conversation with the Silver Surfer and getting her backstory and stuff, and then she has to decide if she's gonna be with them or betray Galactus. Great shot of her first contemplating, and it's just her like encompassed by the whole moon. I thought that was a great shot, and I love what they did with that. And of course she changes her mind at the last second. That's another thing I do wish was in the movie. I wish they had a sequence at some point of either Galactus trying to talk to her or her just noticing like, oh, Galactus is on Earth, and her just thinking about it at some point during like the entire final sequence. I would have loved a shot where it's like she's just in space looking at Earth and it's just her face, and it's like, okay, that's the introduction. She doesn't have to do like the entire fight or anything, but maybe cut back to her like 2 or 3 times, like 5 to 10 seconds worth of just her face looking at the planet total. Just nothing. As soon as like she went to the thought and they had the cool moonshot, and then she just doesn't show up at all until she knocks Johnny out of the way and then hits Galactus through the portal. And I was like, would have liked to have seen like a sequence. Like, how long was she looking? I don't know, because we just hadn't seen her for like, it was almost 15-20 minutes or something. And I was like, that was a little weird that was how they did it. Like, not even a reactionary shot of her seeing him come to Earth, anything. She was just gone for like 20 minutes and then popped up to save him. It's like, it makes sense that would happen, but it was one of those weird moments where it's like, you genuinely kind of forget because she just left. And it was weird that she came back. I didn't even think about her coming back because I just assumed, yeah, she thought about it and then she was just going to leave into the galaxy because they just didn't show her again. So I was just like, oh yeah, she's genuinely in my head. I'm just like, you know, she's gone. Wasn't even thinking about her. And then she popped up and I was like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. So I wish they put like just an extra couple of sequences, 10 seconds total of her just looking and contemplating. Do it like towards, you know, when he first gets there, have a shot, and then somewhere through the battle, just have a shot. Maybe she's like just floating over the planet, or like she's in New York or something and she's just watching it, and then it's that, you know, generic thing. But at least that, you know, there's cliches for a reason. Not just because it's cliche doesn't mean it's horrible. She could have just been there just looking, and then at the last second she finally decides, okay, I'll help you. Cliche, but it's better than her just being gone for 20 minutes and it's like, surprise, I'm saving you. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. But also, you've been like, where were you? What were you doing this whole time? So that was a little weird, but I liked your character. And then, of course, that leads me to my favorite thing. This is where I want to end it. My favorite sequence, and this is going to go down as like, it's got to be one of the top MCU moments we've ever had, in my personal opinion. Them in space, dealing, being chased by her through the wormhole, all that stuff was amazing. But I just want to start at the beginning of that, just the whole scene of them going to space. I never in a million years actually thought they would just be like, all right, let's go up to space. And I'm like, well, they're kind of going to space. I'm like, well, you're just gonna go up in the sky, like Galactus is 1 billion miles away. I'm like, they're not gonna do that though. Like there's no way they're gonna go in like hyperspeed and they have faster than light travel. And it's like, oh well, we'll just hook up to our thing and we'll go FTL. And I was like, that is so cool, just from a comic perspective. And I know we've been to space, we've done hyperspeed with like the Guardians and stuff. I just thought it was gonna be on Earth. Like in the Fantastic Four, that's like one of their things. They're in New York like everybody in Marvel, but they're always off in space. Like the Guardians of the Galaxy, that's literally their thing. They're meant to be in space. The Fantastic Four, they're like 4 people, and they're like, well, what if we chart like this uncharted spot of space? What if we just went into like another dimension? Like they do all sorts of wild stuff. And to see them just actually take a rocket, they just go up into space, and then they just hook up to a FTL machine, and they just start traveling faster than light. I was like, that is so cool. And it just added, once again, me wishing we got more time in this world. Like they almost make me want a TV show, but we know how that's been going. But the fact that they did FTL was so cool. I was like, that's so comic booky, and they just get to jump into it, and it's just like, silly and ridiculous. They just hop into it. Like I said, we've seen it before, but to see humans actually doing it, it does make a bit of a difference. So that was awesome. I love that. And then of course they meet Galactus and all that stuff. And then the actual chase sequence is so effing cool. They're in a portal. She jumps through the portal and is chasing them down. Johnny has to like shoot lasers, but they're curving, so he has to shoot off to the side and like guess the trajectory to watch it spiral and hit her. And then she still comes back and it's like, what are we gonna do? Let's go to a black hole, time dilation. And she's literally like surfing on the cosmos. Like there's no better way to describe that than the Silver Surfer is surfing on a black hole, like cosmic dust. Like that's crazy. And it was such a good scene. And then Sue is like giving birth and everything, and they're all in zero gravity, like floating around and stuff. And it was super cool. Like that whole sequence, I was like, this is like genuinely, I was like, this is thrilling. Like it was just exciting visually, the way the story was going. Like it's probably the best birth scene I've ever seen in anything ever, because everything else is just like, oh, like they're either giving birth or they're giving birth dramatically, or they're giving birth dramatically in a war zone. And that's about it. Birth, dramatic birth, war, dramatic birth. That's how it all goes. It's always the same thing over and over again. That's just how it is. And this was a space birth, and it was nice. Still the usual thing, go through the birth, see the screaming, all the contractions and stuff. Her going invisible was cool. And it was like, that's pretty awesome. That was an amazing sequence. And then of course they go home and it's like, oh, he wanted our baby and we said no. And then everybody hated him. Funny sequence to me, because I'm like, yeah, some people would turn, some people wouldn't. But great moment. Fantastic. I'm sure I've said fantastic more than one time. That's just the one time I actually noticed it. Like fantastic. But it was really good. Like I love that sequence for sure. Like once it hits Disney Plus, I'll probably watch the movie, but I'm like, I'll be waiting for that specific scene. Like I love that scene. So I was very happy with that. And the end fight, just to talk about it in the actual action perspective of them using their abilities and stuff, I thought it was cool. I didn't think it was like the craziest thing in the world. I think Sue doing like the crazy push on him and everything was probably the coolest moment. And then the best moment, it was the coolest moment, but I think the best moment was definitely like, oh, Reed Richards is being like pulled apart and he's just stringing them out like slowly. Although I do love the fact that when Ben first tried to swing like the crane or whatever, the truck, Galactus just grabbed it. And I thought it was gonna be the usual thing, like, oh, he's gonna lift it up and then he's gonna slam him. No, he just was like, and he just sent them, like he flew so far. He went to space, and that's what really got me. I was like, oh man, he's up in the air. And I was like, oh no, he just threw him so hard. He literally threw him out into space. Like that was so crazy to me, but I'm like, that makes sense. But I thought that was cool too. I was like, oh, I usual thing, like, oh, he's really high in the sky. He went to space. He would have died out there. They love going to space, and I appreciate that for the Fantastic Four. But that was good. But Reed being like literally stretched to the point that like his suit was tearing and stuff, and then he drops him and he bounces off the ground and stuff. But I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like he had like his skin was like ripped out. I think that was supposed to be from him hitting the ground, but I thought that was a really crazy moment, because at first it was like, oh, he's gonna stretch him out and then like kind of toss him as he's like flinging through the sky. And then it was like, oh no, he's just pulling him. It was just like, da, da, da. Like I knew he wasn't gonna do it, but I was like, this is interesting. Like I know he's not gonna die. They're not gonna have, well, they did in Multiverse of Madness, but they're not gonna do that twice. They're not gonna have Mr. Fantastic just like stretched apart, once again murdered, and just ripped into tiny shreds. But it was a great sequence. Definitely a crazy moment. Like, oh, he's really doing it and just pushing him like to his limits. So I thought that was another great sequence. But like I said, the coolest moment was Sue just like that final push. And Johnny was about to have his moment too. We'll see. I think they might do some great stuff with Johnny because he can do some stuff. We'll see what happens with that. But I like the action at the end. I think them in space being chased by the surfer was the best action sequence though. And I'm excited to see more. I think they did a good job with that. They did a good job also showing how strong Ben is, because I think that's another thing where it's like, people don't really get the Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four specifically, the thing fights the Hulk all the time. They're always fighting. That's almost like a staple of those characters. When I was a kid, I'm like, I kind of thought they hated each other. It was almost like a random thing. It was, that classic, like just Hulk's angry today, and then the Thing comes along and they clash in heads. So that's like one of my favorite things in comics is like Thing versus the Hulk. They just fight sometimes. The Thing is very powerful. He's not just like, oh, he's kind of strong rock guy. He is tough. He's like legit. So once again, with characters that seem underpowered because people don't know him so well, Sue is very overpowered. Reed can stretch. I mean, he does some weird stuff I don't think we'll ever see in the MCU, like where he's taking his eyeballs out and stretching them. I don't think we'll ever see that. Johnny has a crazy extra fire type of situation. Although him sucking up fire, I don't think I've ever seen that before. So I don't think I ever knew that was a thing. But I was like, I love it. That's super cool. I don't know if I ever knew he could actually do that. That probably shows how little I would actually know about the Fantastic Four. I know their stories, but I don't recall ever hearing that he could actually suck up flames. But that looked great, and he can also expel flames to an insane degree. So I'm looking forward to that. And Ben is insanely strong, way stronger than you might expect. But overall, really enjoyed the film. It is definitely a fun movie that makes you want to sit in that world a little bit longer. We'll see how that pans out for their universe as well as all the others. But for now, we got Fantastic Four first steps, the first steps of the, once again, 6th phase of the MCU. And hopefully it keeps going. I enjoyed Thunderbolts. I've heard a lot of people say that it sucked. I'm like, that's crazy. I thought that was a really good movie. Captain America, sure, that could have been way better. But Thunderbolts, I thought was really fun. And then this I thought was even better and more grounded, but still overall a better story. But I'm liking it. We'll see about Spider-Man, and then we will see what happens. Doomsday and Secret Wars. I cannot wait to see that stuff. And I hope it's great. I truly hope it is. They got a lot riding on this, especially because it's like, with the way things have been so spread out, they're almost building the entire story just within 2 movies. Unless Spider-Man, gets some stuff in there, but we'll see what ends up happening. I know this is a super long one. It's also been a minute since I've actually done a review, so it's kind of nice to be in this little space here. But Fantastic Four first steps. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Would love to know what you guys thought about it, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it, and of course, with it going into the it's the beginning, but it feels like it's so weird to say it's the beginning of Phase 6 because we're only, if we're counting Spider-Man, 3 movies away from everything being rebooted, and it's the weirdest thing in the world. Like, this is the start of Phase 6, but it could be like one of those really epic, it's like a season 2 premiere type of thing where it's like, wow, that was amazing. And then the rest of the story plays out. So maybe that's how it'll be. And we kick things off really, really amazingly well with Spider-Man, and especially obviously Doomsday and Secret Wars. But we'll see what ends up happening. I'm looking forward to it. I, of course, want everything to work out because that makes art better. But we'd love to know your thoughts, like I said. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.